When most people imagine the Sahara, they see emptiness, endless sand, silence, nothingness. But that image is wrong. For over 1,000 years, this desert was crossed, mapped, traded, and ruled by a people who understood it better than anyone else. They are known to history as the Tuareg, often reduced to the nickname the Blue Men of the Desert. But the color was never the story. Power, knowledge, and survival were. This is the story of how a civilization thrived not in cities, but in motion, and how their world was both built and broken. The Tuareg are a Berber people, indigenous to the Central Sahara. Their homeland stretched across what are now Mali, Niger, Algeria, Libya, and Burkina Faso long before these modern borders existed. They did not build empires of stone walls or capitals. They built something much more difficult, a civilization that could move. Their society was organized, hierarchical, and deeply structured with nobles, warriors, religious scholars, artisans, and formerly enslaved communities, each with defined roles. This was not chaos. This was order perfectly adapted to the harshest environment on Earth. Their unique way of life was practical, not primitive. Their social structure was a sophisticated tool for survival, ensuring that knowledge, resources, and responsibilities were distributed in a way that sustained them across vast and forgiving distances. This moving society was a testament to human ingenuity. A society that didn't need permanent cities to have law, culture, and power. So, why were they called the Blue Men? The name comes from their famous indigo-dyed veils, called the tagelmust. Over time, the rich indigo dye would rub off, staining the skin of the wearer blue. But this was not just decoration. The veil was essential protection against the blazing sun, constant sandstorms, and the dry desert air. More importantly, it symbolized honor, maturity, and identity. In traditional Tuareg culture, it is the men who cover their faces, not the women. A man would only appear unveiled among his closest family. To face the outside world with an uncovered face was considered shameful. This single custom challenges nearly every stereotype that outsiders have imposed on both African and Islamic societies, showing a complexity that is often overlooked. The Sahara was never a barrier. It was a highway. And for centuries, the Tuareg controlled it. They were the masters of trans-Saharan trade, guiding massive camel caravans that were the lifeblood of continents. These caravans carried priceless goods, gold from West Africa, salt from the desert mines, ivory, leather, and enslaved people. But they also carried ideas, religion, and language, connecting distant cultures. The Tuareg's knowledge was their power. They knew where to find water hidden deep underground. They could read the stars, the winds, and the subtle patterns of the sand to navigate. Without Tuareg guides, caravans simply did not survive. Their expertise made the rise of legendary cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Agadez possible. This was economic power, quiet, mobile, and absolutely decisive. Tuareg society was and remains unusual in many ways. Women, in particular, held significant autonomy, a fact that surprises many who hold preconceived notions about the region. Property often passed through the maternal line from mother to daughter. Women could initiate divorce, and their opinions held great weight within the community. Poetry and oral history, the cornerstones of their culture, were often preserved and transmitted by women. The Tuareg also preserved their own unique script, Tifino, one of Africa's oldest writing systems, which is still used today. While outsiders often dismissed them as simple nomads, the Tuareg carefully maintained their literature, laws, and cultural memory. Their mobility did not mean primitiveness. It meant brilliant adaptation. Everything changed in the late 19th century. European colonial powers arrived in Africa with new tools of control, artificial borders, standing armies, and absolutely no understanding of desert life. The French colonial project was particularly devastating. It carved up the Tuareg homeland, dividing their people among multiple new colonies: Mali, Niger, Algeria, ignoring thousands of years of ethnic and cultural reality. The ancient caravan trade collapsed as new sea routes and railways were favored. Traditional grazing routes for their herds were cut off by arbitrary lines on a map. Their political authority was systematically dismantled. The Tuareg resisted, fiercely. But their mobile tactics could not defeat modern weaponry forever. Their world was fractured. And their history was rewritten, or worse, erased. Today, the Tuareg people still exist, but their communities are often marginalized within the modern nations they inhabit. They face immense challenges: economic exclusion, political instability, and persistent cultural misunderstanding. Their way of life is threatened by climate change, conflict, and governments that often fail to recognize their rights. Yet, their identity survives. It lives on in their language, their iconic music, the elegance of their dress, and the power of their memory. They were never relics of the past. They were, and are, the architects of a desert civilization. History often celebrates the settled and the stationary, the cities, the walls, and the kings who built them. But the Tuareg remind us that civilization can also move. That power does not always announce itself with monumental architecture. And that Africa's past is far deeper, richer, and more complex than what our textbooks often allow. They were not just the blue men of the desert. They were its masters. If this history was new to you, that wasn't an accident. So much of the world's story is left untold. Follow our channel, subscribe, and share this video because Africa's real history deserves space, depth, and respect. Thanks for watching.